Welcome to the channel. My name is Matthias. Today we're going to talk about Uncanny X-Men issues 123 and 124, where we have our merry mutants having to deal with Arcade, one of my all-time favorite X-Men villains, even though he's never felt really dangerous to them. And then we're going to cover Uncanny X-Men Annual 3. That has nothing to do with the story, but it revolves around a character that I really don't care for, who is Archon, but the art to the issue, it's really fantastic. It's worth checking out. And it adds a interesting dimension to Storm, who is also one of the greatest X-Men of all time. So without further ado, let's get into this. Now, the issue as it starts off, we have Scott Summers and his girlfriend, Colin Wynn, that I have to say, these issues are written by Chris Claremont, and the art is by John Byrne. Byrne's art is fantastic. I love it. But I have to say that I have a black and white edition, and I have a hard time differentiating the different female characters from each other. So the thing is that they have a run-in with Spider-Man, and they're chatting things up, as heroes do. And once they're done with the small talk, Spidey swings away, but then he remembers he has to say something to Scott. The thing is that when he returns, Colin Wynn and Scott are not there anymore, and he sees this garbage truck drive away, and he thinks to himself, oh crap, it's Arcade, he's back, because obviously Arcade's first appearance was when he captured Spider-Man and Captain Britain. So Peter Parker tries to call in and give the rest of the X-Men a heads up of the impending danger. Now, the whole setup to how Arcade captures all the X-Men is just freaking fantastic, especially this part of the call, because you could see that Arcade had beat Spider-Man to the punch. So the thing is, now we have all the X-Men, they're captured, they're in Murder World. So now we have the X-Men fighting for their lives, and we discover who had contracted Arcade in the first place. Because for those who don't know, Arcade is a contracted assassin. The thing is, he tries to make things interesting by using Murder World. And the thing is that the two characters that required Arcade's assistance to take down the X-Men are Black Tom Cassidy and Juggernaut. I find it hilarious that Black Tom and Juggy actually had to contract Arcade for this. I wonder, they could have dived into this a little bit more, like they were worried if they tried to take down the X-Men again, they would be humiliated or something like that. So let's put our focus back into Murder World. One of the X-Men has been totally brainwashed. It's Colossus. So he becomes something like Captain Proletariat. So the X-Men are dealing with the murder bots, the whole scenario, and now Colossus, who has been brainwashed. We get that whole scenario with Storm, that she's underwater, and this probably inspired that water stage in Spider-Man and X-Men vs. Arcade on the Super Nintendo. One of the hardest and most punishing games on the SNES. I freaking hated it. Superhero games were few and far in between back then, and so I remember getting this and freaking hating it from the moment I put it on. And don't get me started on the normal Nintendo game of X-Men and Silver Surfer. Oh my god. Those games I've rage quit so many times. There is a pretty cool detail where Wolverine tries to sidestep all of Murder World going through the walls, just like Spidey did in the first Arcade story. The thing is that Arcade has learned from his mistakes, so within the walls, they're crawling with Arcade bots, murder bots. The character that's actually able to get to Arcade's control room is Nightcrawler, using a long forgotten power where he can melt into shadows and become invisible. So what happens is Nightcrawler confronts Arcade in the control room, and Arcade is like, you know what? I'm not ready for so much grief. And what Arcade does is that he decides that the X-Men have not won. He puts a pause on everything. He expels everyone out of Murder World. He's probably like, they have not paid me enough for this. He also releases all the hostages. The thing is that once released, the X-Men ponder the idea of going back in to Murder World and take down Arcade, and they just think to themselves, nope, we'll leave him alone. It's actually a pretty interesting way to end the story. Now, let's jump into the annual, which has incredible art by George Perez. That the main antagonist slash villain is Archon, who is this weird fusion between Conan the Barbarian and Thor. I never liked the character. He comes from this alien dimension that his planet doesn't revolve around the sun. It has a ring of light around the planet, and it always has issues. That led to Archon coming to Earth and trying to kidnap Thor, and then having to deal with the Avengers. Now he's back on Earth. The ring has turned off. He's looking for Thor. He ends up going for Storm. Now, the interesting thing about this story is that at the beginning, we had Storm having this conversation with Cyclops with the fact that she likes being a superhero, but she's not used to this life, and that she prefers helping people in general with her powers, like she did back in the day in Africa, stopping people from going hungry, helping with the crops with her powers, stopping famines. So what happens is Storm gets kidnapped by Archon. The X-Men go to Archon's planet. We get epic battles where George Perez just goes crazy with the art. During the story, it sort of hints like maybe Storm has been brainwashed because he wants to be with Archon, helping them. So what happens is when the X-Men finally arrive and rescue Storm, she's like, wait, I'm here to help Archon. Like, he shouldn't have kidnapped me in the first place, but I feel like I could do a difference. So all the X-Men team up to try to help Archon with the situation. Maybe if Archon wasn't such a doofus and had explained himself, we would not have this whole situation in the first place. And we get to see the situation where Cyclops somehow absorbs Storm's powers to reactivate this machine that's going to activate the rings around this planet so they can have sunlight again. In this story, it's hinted that Cyclops can absorb luminic energy and stuff like that, but then obviously they're going to retcon this because his powers come from a different place. They come from a different dimension. I would say that this story would be an easy skip, but again, the art is a real treat. And another thing is that Archon, thanks to what had happened in this story, he's going to gift Cyclops a couple of those lightning bolts that he uses as weapons and to teleport. And the X-Men are going to be able to use these lightning bolts in a further story arc when they have to go to Asgard to rescue the New Mutants. So we're going to leave this video here. I hope you guys liked it. See you guys next time. Bye.